You'll always see China come in and say, "Oh, we're going to stop supplies of gallium and rare earths, but we're also going to stop LFP technology." Nobody understood the third part. So it's something that China really sees as really important. They have the stranglehold on LFP battery cells for now. So if China were to stop delivering those to North America, I mean, EVs would become difficult, but also energy storage. Like, how are we going to manage our grid? Our grid really needs to store this energy. It has enough phosphate for 350 gigawatt hours of LFP battery for the next 23 years, and that would be enough to electrify half of the fleet of all vehicles produced in North America, being Quebec.
Lithium iron phosphate batteries are taking up a larger share of global battery production, and it's now accounting for the majority of EV components, probably being one of the most key ingredients in the production of EVs. And we'll talk about how this expansion is going to impact not just the global economy, but supply chains around the world, what investors should be positioned for in light of this trend. Our guest today is the CEO of a very interesting company, First Phosphate. I'm pleased to welcome to the show John Passalacqua, CEO and Director of First Phosphate, and that's PHOS on the CSE exchange. Welcome to the show, John. It's a pleasure to speak with you.
Yeah, nice to be here. Thank you, David.
The production and evolution of electric vehicles needing lithium batteries is not entirely a new phenomenon. This has been going on for years. It's accelerated in recent years. Some new key developments we should touch on. First of all, Tesla just signed a $4.3 billion LGES battery deal, reducing China reliance. This was earlier in the summer. South Korea's LG Energy Solution, LGES, signed a $4.3 billion deal to supply Tesla with energy storage system batteries. So, a person familiar with the matter, the lithium ion phosphate batteries will be supplied from LGES's U.S. factory in Michigan, the person said, on condition of anonymity. Why is this an important story? Why does this matter?
Yeah, it's really important, David. And I think, when you mentioned the word EV, just like you to know, EV is probably the last segment fulfilled by the lithium iron phosphate battery. And even Tesla's announcements there, it's all based mostly on energy storage. That's a really big sector for Tesla. These LFP batteries, only about 7% of these LFP batteries are destined towards the EV sector. A good 50% are geared towards energy storage, whether that be, the battery walls in people's homes for the electric vehicles, or whether that be, energy storage, such as, the California grid now relies on a lot of these batteries to store the excess energy, the excess green energy that comes from solar and other renewables. So it's really big. It's mostly big on this whole notion of energy storage. But now again, with the AI revolution, the robotics revolution, all these AI data centers and the amount of power that they require, all that power on the way in needs to be regulated. It needs to be stored, and all that is done on LFP batteries. So really, the big boom that we're seeing is because of all of this. Demand for energy and grid storage. The EV is still there, but it's really eclipsed by all these new uses that are really just the tip of the iceberg.
When you mentioned stationary storage, is that commercial or residential?
It's actually both. Yeah, David, it's both. So commercial is kind of like the Tesla battery walls, or now we don't really have generators anymore that run on natural gas. All what people are doing, they're installing batteries, LFP batteries, and these batteries can be hooked up, for instance, to solar panels or any other type of renewable energy that's coming through the home, and can also store energy at night. So and it can farm out energy when it's necessary. That for instance, if there's a blackout, you don't need to run on a natural gas generator anymore. You run on your battery. What they also do, which is great, is they take in electricity during non-peak hours, and they'll store it, and then they'll push it out when there is peak hours. So that's the way they've been able to help with the electric cars, and in terms of their need for a lot of power. The power stays in the stationary energy storage units in the garage, for instance, and then it serves the home, and it serves the electric vehicle whenever you need to charge anything in the home or in the electric vehicle. So that's one big use. But then the whole discussion around energy grids, utilities now have a lot of green energy. As you know, green energy doesn't really come in a consistent or constant format, such as what might be a nuclear energy or a hydroelectric energy. When you're dealing with solar and you're dealing with wind, that comes when it does, and it's precious, so it needs to be stored. So that's stored on these LFP batteries. And lastly, as I was saying, all the demand now from the data centers, and the fact that the energy grid cannot support this kind of usage on it anymore. All commercial and residential clients now need to have their own battery energy storage. So all that's on LFP. So it's just a massive requirement, across the board, residential, commercial, and everywhere else.
Global battery demand is expected to ninefold by 2035 versus 2023. So in a matter of 12 years, it's projected to increase by a factor of 10. The share of lithium phosphate batteries is expected to rise to 40 to 50% of the total battery demand by 2030. Could be even greater than 60% if we're seeing supply chain pressures on nickel and cobalt. So I guess some alternatives. Can you comment on this geopolitical dynamic about other sensitive and critical minerals potentially being backlogged or choked off, and then the world needing more LFP batteries as a result?
Very interesting, David. So right now, you'll hear statistics that's saying, LFP batteries less than 50%. Well, it might be less than 50% in EVs, but in everything else, it's kind of like 80, 90%, even 100%. Energy storage is almost 100% LFP. So when you take all of those sectors together and you look at it, LFP battery, it depends on what statistics you're looking at. They're currently about 60 to 80% of all the batteries on the market, and that takes in all the sectors. And they're also taking over in automotive very quickly, especially for medium and low range vehicles. Anything that is also consumer public transportation and commercial transportation. So the and when they put a little splash of manganese and they get into lithium iron manganese phosphate, it's almost like an NMC battery. And you're right, around the nickel manganese and cobalt battery, they were great. They were always in there for high end SUVs. That's what the market, or at least the capital markets, always wanted to focus on, NMC batteries. But the reality is, high end SUVs are probably not even 2-3% of the entire battery market, and the other 98% is all functional, mostly on a wide variety of batteries, of which the lion's share does go to LFP. And there's no way that you can roll out LFP battery, normal nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries across energy storage. Like you said, there's just not enough nickel, cobalt for it. And also, there's been issues around fire safety with nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries, both in vehicles and in energy storage. The LFP battery seems to solve that for the most part. So it's a question of safety. It's a question of access to critical minerals. But it's also a question of cost. Now, the one issue with moving from NMC, or for expanding this, like you said, this ninefold increase that we have to have on battery energy storage within the next 5 to 10 years. Well, where's that going to come from? Lithium iron phosphate battery. Okay, well, we know we got lithium, right? There's going to be a need for a lot more lithium. We know we got iron powder, but phosphate, well, how does that work? Well, the problem is you need purified phosphoric acid to do that. And the purified phosphoric acid is very supply constrained. There's not even enough phosphate in North America for fertilizer. And even at that, what comes out of the sedimentary deposits for making fertilizer-based phosphate products cannot go into the LFP battery. It doesn't have the purity. But this rock that we have in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean region of Quebec is igneous phosphate rock, and almost 100% of that goes into making this very high purified phosphoric acid that is required for the LFP battery. So that's really the secret sauce here, is having unlimited amounts of phosphate rock that can be converted directly into battery acid.
Going back to the Tesla story, ultimately, why is Elon Musk and Tesla leading away from China as a source of LFP batteries?
Well, look, I mean, if LFP battery already is 60 to 80% of the world's batteries, and we know it's going to continue to go up on this 9 to 10-fold track that you've been talking about, David, well, then that means it's going to become very important. I was out in Montreal the other day at a presentation where we presented the first LFP batteries made from critical minerals in North America, which I have right in front of me right here. And Kareem Zagib, who's one of the grandfathers of LFP battery, he says he sees LFP battery being the next 100 years. It's like the lead acid battery of the prior decade. So if that is true, and right now all of these LFP battery cells are made in China, well then Elon Musk has got a real critical vulnerability. Does he not? Because his vehicles are now moving on to LFP, but all of his stationary energy storage systems are on LFP. And just so you know, I mean the LFP battery market for stationary energy storage and for Tesla is starting to eclipse a little bit even their EV sales. So it's really important that for somebody like Tesla, but anybody else that is dependent on this LFP supply chain, that they start to localize it. So what we see is a very quick localization of the LFP battery supply chain into North America. But where all these guys get stuck is they were able to make their own battery packs with Chinese cells, but now they need to make cells here. So they started to make cells here, but all the critical minerals that go into the cells, those are still coming from China. So they've got to localize all of that. And that's what we are all about here at First Phosphate. That's localizing the LFP battery supply chain in North America, starting from critical minerals, which we've already been able to do. I mean, we've produced, the first LFP battery cells in North America from fully North American feedstock, phosphoric acid and iron powder from our future mine, as well as lithium carbonate from Century Lithium in Nevada, and also with graphite from Nouveau Monde Graphite. We were able to put those together just recently, the first of its kind in terms of relocating and onshoring this supply chain, and that's exactly what Tesla and everybody else needs. They need this localized.
What you're trying to do is you're trying to be integrated into the vertical integration supply chain of North America, from LFP mining to battery production to all the way to the end product, whether it be battery storage component for a house or a Tesla car, for example. Okay, so where are you right now in this supply chain? How far along are you to seeing production?
Yeah, so right now, we've got access to what is going to be the blocker in all of this, which is the phosphate and the ability to get to phosphoric acid. I mean, I personally am of the belief that all the lithium is going to remain landlocked. It's going to remain locked unless you have access to manganese and cobalt or phosphate, and the phosphate is going to be restricted. So basically, we have our PEA out on our mine site. We're now fully capitalized to get through our feasibility study here in the next 18 months, and we hope to have be having a functional mine here within the next few years as well. Hopefully by 2029 to meet some offtake agreements that we have that are in place.
I want to get into detail about your project itself, but let me just ask a hypothetical question here. How critical is lithium iron phosphate? In other words, let's suppose mining were to stop completely in North America and beyond, and China were to cut off supply completely. What would happen to the world tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, it's very important, right? When there's quibbling between China and North America or the USA under the Biden administration and the Trump administration, you'll always see China come in and say, "Oh, we're going to stop supplies of gallium and rare earths, but we're also going to stop LFP technology." Nobody understood the third part. So it's something that China really sees as really important. They have the stranglehold on LFP battery cells for now. So if China were to stop delivering those to North America, I mean, EVs would become difficult, but also energy storage. Like, how are we going to manage our grid? Our grid really needs to store this energy. So if China I don't think would cut off those supplies, because it's just such a massive revenue number for them to supply the world with LFP batteries, and they want to continue to do it. But as the rest of the world starts to develop their own capabilities, that's going to be a really important source of revenue and supply chain. And it's something that we need to do critically, because yes, we are already quite dependent. At least our energy storage and our grids are dependent on all these LFP battery cells coming from China. If it happened tomorrow, I mean, in the quick future, we wouldn't see too much, but we would have to quickly develop the supply chain on our own. And I think that's what forward-looking companies like First Phosphate are doing. We've been seeing this need for a few years now.
So tell us about your deposit. Where are you located? What is the size of the project we're looking at? And you already told us about the progress so far.
Yeah, so the deposit is located in the Saguenay-Lac-Saint-Jean area of Quebec. It's just 2 hours north of Quebec City. It's in the fifth largest population basin of Quebec. It's in a very industrial area where Rio Tinto, aluminum, and the forestry industry for Quebec are located. It's a dual industry region, microcosm. Problem is now with the tariffs and all of that, and lots of plant closures. The whole area is being slowly, affected by all of this. So they desperately need a new industry. We are that new industry. First Phosphate. The phosphate is sitting at 50 to 70 kilometers from the deep sea port of Saguenay. So we've got to give you an idea, we've got 200 million tons of inferred resource, about 50 million tons of indicated. We're going to be moving that up with definition drilling to make that all indicated and measured. But to give you an indication in terms of gigawatt hours and in terms of what this can do, so the deposit as we know it now, and there's a lot, it's open on depth. It's open at depth. It sits on surface. It's about 2.5 kilometers long. It's like a big open pit mine. It's at 1 kilometer from the local highway. It's got a power and workforce to it. But if you were to mine that, it has enough phosphate for 350 gigawatt hours of LFP battery for the next 23 years, and that would be enough to electrify half of the fleet of all vehicles produced in North America, being Quebec, being Canada, USA, and Mexico. That would be able to provide batteries for 6 million cars per annum out of the 12 million that are produced. And like I said, that's only a small fraction of what LFP does, right? That's just 5% of the market is EVs. So even if we brought this deposit online, there would still be a requirement, for another 30, 40 deposits like this just to fulfill the demand that's coming. So we're sitting in a pretty spot. All of this phosphate concentrate that we produce, the world's purest, almost 41% P2O5 phosphate, will be going into phosphoric acid. And that phosphoric acid is where the real shortage is going to be, and that's where the real price spikes are going to be. So we're sitting sitting very, very pretty right now.
Tell us about the concentrate process and ultimately what investments have to be made on your side to realize production ultimately.
Yeah, the great part about it, David, is we've got standard flotation, very well known in mining industry. So there's a separation of the magnetite and the ilmenite. Then we float the phosphate. We recover about 92% of it. That is then dried. That's just a standard concentration process. That's about 500 million US of CapEx in terms of at the mine. We don't have any large infrastructure to build. We're on main road. We're on power. We're close to the deep sea port, and then from there, we've got already up to 200 to 400,000 tons of concentrate off-taken to Europe under definitive offtake, and then 500,000 tons of that material stays back for us, which will be processed into phosphoric acid at the port of Saguenay.
I'm skipping a few steps here, but I think investors I'm thinking from the perspective of an investor, what ultimately is probably the end goal of your company? Are you more likely to get taken out by, let's say, a Rio Tinto, for example, or let's say a company like Tesla?
Look, I don't know who would be interested in taking us out. I'm not really interested in that. I'm interested in building the business. I've told everybody from the beginning. We got the ball. We're running it down the field, and we're bringing this into the end zone. So if something happens along the way, we have lots of discussions with lots of parties. And I think that this sector is just ready to go white hot, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of discussions to come. But we're here to build out the project. We're here to make it happen. And if something happens in between, I don't know. But think about it. We're going to be probably one of the only sources of this high purity phosphate in North America, the furthest along, the only company fully integrated between technology and minerals for LFP battery, fully integrated mining tech company. I mean, I think that's quite an attractive prospect to a lot of people.
Tell us about the economics of the mine that you've done estimates on. What roughly is the production target? What is the NPV and IRR of this mine? And what is the CapEx needed to get things into production?
Yeah, so as we were saying, 2.1 billion NPV, IRR of 37.1%, payback of 2.9 years, strip ratio 1.5 to 1. Basically, the CapEx to build out, everything, the mine and everything else with a 20% contingency built in is about 500 million US dollars. And, this was done at price where the price of igneous phosphate currently sits right now, and that price has been 2 or 3 times higher over the last few years, and we're probably at the lowest that these prices could ever be. And the only producer that can produce at this level is really Morocco. So we can see prices going significantly higher, especially for igneous phosphate, which has nothing to do with the fertilizer industry. So we're sitting at a very attractive NPV. We've got no royalties, we got no debt on the company, and just sitting here and just waiting for the next developments.
How do these numbers stack up to your peers, relative to your peers?
Well, unfortunately, there aren't too many peers out there. There are other companies in phosphate, but that's usually sedimentary phosphate, and that's for the fertilizer industry. Or there's, one, maybe two igneous phosphate projects out there, but a lot of them are geared towards agriculture, or they're working with other different tonnages. This is the only project out there, David, that is igneous phosphate. We're 900,000 tons per annum, which is, a good average production. And we're geared 100% towards the LFP battery industry. And we did it on purpose to be, we had several sites that we could choose from to develop, but we're developing this site because it's got the lowest CapEx rating, because we're very close to infrastructure and we're very close to workforce.
How much government support is given by the government of Quebec or even the federal government of Canada?
Yeah, look, I mean, all of that, it's on its way. Obviously, you've heard it all on the campaign trail. Mr. Carney's government is slowly getting it together on these projects. It's one of their major mandates. But if you look on the campaign trail, during the election debate, we were actually mentioned. Igneous phosphate was actually mentioned during the debate. It was the leader of the Bloc Québécois, François Blanchet, that said so eloquently, the future of Quebec is igneous phosphate. He's even tweeted about it. And, we're on the radar of everybody. We're on the radar of the province. We're on the radar of the federal government. And think about what was being talked about on the federal election platform. It was all about offtakes to countries other than the United States because of the trade issues going on. And it was about developing our ports, our federal ports. So we're sitting at the federal port of Saguenay with critical mineral igneous phosphate on definitive offtake to Europe. That's exactly what the politicians were talking about. So yes, we are definitely very high on the radar.
So tell us about the next steps and milestones in your timeline. When can you have a feasibility study ready for the public? And ultimately, when can the public expect you to put this project into production?
So feasibility study, we're tracking end of 2026, permitting early 2027, in production by 2029.
Walk us through that step. So what are the key milestones you need to achieve before you're able to be in production?
Yeah, so right now we've already started our environmentals. So the environmentals are ongoing. Definition drilling is a big one. We've done our first metallurgical study, which if on our website you can see how that concentrate plant in miniature was built. But we're at our second larger metallurgical study now for the feasibility study that's ongoing. The desktop study on the feasibility and the resource will be during 2026. So we hope to have it all delivered by the end of 2026. And then obviously it's permitting. We've got the Quebec BOP public process ongoing and a number of other permit requirements. So that's all by 2027. And then after that, we've already started to engage engineering. We started to engage discussions with major non-dilutive sources of funding, being governments and also other private investors. Once we're permitted, this is going to get built out very quickly because of the superior logistics, the focus on LFP battery, and the fact that we've done everything that we had to do to be able to get to what is going to be one of the foremost deposits here in the world, located at 70 kilometers from the deep sea port of Saguenay. Just uncontestable, just the advantages of the site. And
so how much cash
to build?
So how much cash do you have right now in the bank?
Yeah, on the books we got about 18 to 20 million. 20 million with receivables and such, and that's all destined to our feasibility study and our permitting.
The mine itself, you mentioned 485 million USD for the CapEx. How are you planning to raise that cash?
Yeah, I like I said, there's already commitments lining up for it. Feel that in terms of a concentrator, that's a very good, reasonable number. We've got the Export Import Bank of the United States that's been at the table. We've had letters of interest expressed by other government entities here in Canada, and also in Europe, and also some private investors that are lining up. We're going to be looking at doing all non-dilutive capital at that point.
What do you mean
Might
by
not.
non-dilutive capital?
Well, it comes in the form of debt, but debt
Okay.
that's from friendly partners such as governments, Export Import Bank, on very favorable terms.
Right. So usually if, let's say, the CapEx is larger than the market capitalization of the company, would you consider then alternatives like perhaps a partnership or a JV to get things into production?
Look, I mean, we're open to everything. We've done a good job now to remain debt free, royalty free. We're looking to make the right decisions, the good decisions that offer the best value to our shareholders. And I'll tell you, David, we're sitting here trading at 4% of the NPV of our PEA. So we've got a lot of room to grow here in terms of a market cap as well. Market's just starting to wake up to it. If you look at the way the stock chart is starting to go, it was we were in a little bit of a dead period there for the last 2.5 years with critical minerals and with electrification, but now the people are starting to wake up and get interested in it again, especially with what's going on with Lithium Americas. People realize, wow, it's game on again. How do we make this happen? We're sitting at the top of everyone's radar.
Yeah. So let me just show my chart here. This is your stock, PHOS, on the CSE. What happened in 2025 is my question. The stock went up from 27 cents to 66 cents. So a lot of it is, market sentiment going up for mining stocks, but was there anything company specific that happened in mid-July that propelled the stock up to 1x higher in a span of 2 months?
Well, I think, around a lot of these projects, people are saying, well, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen? Well, we raised $20 million, right? And that gets us through what is the valley of death for most mining companies. So we've been able to secure the capital or the water to walk across the valley of death. And they know that we're going to end up with feasibility and permits in hand without too much further ado. So that's really important. That sort of gives us a real bump on our percentage of our market cap to NPV. Still a lot of growth to go. And also, just the changing of the times, the federal government and on the campaign trail, and lots of talk of first phosphate and the need for it, and just I guess the more investor sophistication, where investors are starting to realize, well, okay, lithium, but what else? And the shift from the NSP battery to the LFP battery, which was already in place, but just the realization of all of that, and the fact of where do we get the phosphate from, and also our team has really been executing. We've met all of our goals. We're also very committed to the company. We get all of our salaries paid in stock. I mean, recently I have bought $600,000 worth of stock in the market in the earlier part of this year when everybody thought the world was going to fall apart with President Trump and all this and all that and the tariffs. We got really strong insider participation in the company. All the insiders regularly buy into private placements. We regularly buy in the market. And again, we're all paid in stock.
How much of the outstanding float is owned by management, board of directors? Tell us about your shareholder structure.
Yeah, so we see about 25% being owned by board of directors, management, and our team. And then about another 40% is owned by major shareholders, which, are not that well-known names in the sense that we've gone into very, very deep pools of private capital, family office, friends and family. There are some small institutionals starting up in there as well, but very good non-toxic capital, all very well-built capital structure. And then we've got about 35% that sits in the hands of the public markets that trades around. And our Indigenous group partners also got 1% of the stock.
So tell us about yourself. People want to know about management. Management is often cited as the most important decision criteria before looking into a potential investment. So walk us through your professional background and ultimately how you ended up leading First Phosphate.
Yeah, so I've been in the capital markets and in the technology markets for a long time, for most of my life. I also run my own personal family office. When we saw this opportunity, David, we saw it as just so important, and like you said, management was so important to it that I decided to build a company around. A team of people that I could trust. So, our board, our management, we've all come together to form this. I'm the founder of the company. I'm also, the lead investor, and I'm also the CEO of the company. So my background is in that. I've been involved in a lot of capital markets transactions, but I've also been involved in actually running businesses, private businesses. So we thought that we needed to really stay close to this. So I came on as CEO for it, and I'm really happy for it. Really enjoying it. I'm enjoying just the integration between the mining and the technology, and I'm just enjoying the great team that we have with us, and just the sheer lightning pace of which development is happening at this company.
All right. Major news coming up that investors need to be watching out for.
Well, it's all material, non-public information that I can't share on the air, but I think you got to kind of just watch, some of the cues that I've said.
Developments. Let me just rephrase. Major developments that you're working on that we should watch releases for.
Yeah, so we've built the in miniature the LFP battery supply chain in North America, right, from critical minerals from North America. That's an exceptional accomplishment. Look to us to continue to build that. Look to us to get through our feasibility study. Look to us to start on further partnerships, and then lots of surprises along the way.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate your time today, and I'll put the link down to the First Phosphate website so people can stay up to date there. Thank you very much. We'll speak again soon.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. Thanks to your audience.
And thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe.